All right, what's up? This is the mini cut wrap up. 8 weeks, 40 days of training, hundreds of sets, thousands of reps, all while in a calorie deficit. Let's see if we kept our strength and our size. Let's start off with our body weight change. So at the start of the mini cut, I was weighing in at 182 pounds. And at the end, I weighed 168 pounds. For a total of 14-pound decrease. For the body fat, according to the scale that I use, it said I started at 16.8% body fat and ended at 14% body fat, giving us a decrease of 2.8% body fat according to that scale. All right, so now let's get into the before and after pictures. So these pictures, I guess, don't align exactly the same. As we can see, my face is chopped off from one, but we got the before on the left-hand side and then the after on the right-hand side. As far as we could see from here, I think you can tell some clear separation on here. Let me undo that one, maybe circle it. On the chest middle line, comparing this other chest middle line. The abs, you could see the fluff on the V taper, like around the sides versus on this side. Like the bottom, I'm not sure what you call it right here, section right here. You can see how my stomach is way more thick down there. I think also, if we look at my shoulders, it looks like more roundy and or more separation compared to the before shoulders there. If you zoom in, you could see maybe the vascularity in the forearms a little bit better, at least on this picture. Fuck, the fucking pen went further away. A little bit better on here compared to the other one. As far as separation on the legs on this pose, maybe around this area. Now it's not drawing. I don't know what I did there. But maybe you can see my cursor. I should probably test that, right? So if you can see my cursor without having me draw on it, we'll leave it for this clip and then see how it goes. But right around this area, right, you can see, I guess, some more lines going on in there. A little bit hard to tell, but that's for this front relaxed pose. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so yeah, you can, going back looking at this first recording, screen recording of our very first one, you can see my cursor. So I think moving forward, without playing around and drawing all the lines, I'll just hover my cursor over it for the next. So on the hamstring lines, I still got like a line here and a line there, but I think you can see the line and the bump of the hamstring itself a lot more. Moving on to the top, the Christmas tree inserts on the lats. Again, maybe it's due to the pictures, but you can see the Christmas tree here, but I feel like you could see it a lot better, and maybe some striations right around here. Again, with the arms, you can see some more vascularity and veins coming in on the forearms here versus over on the before. And then as we get into our upper back and this trap area over here, we're able to see more details versus the before and the after, as well as in the shoulder area on these two right here. So that's for this pose. Let's move on to another pose. So here again, the poses aren't exactly the same. But moving forward, I will be taking pose pictures the same way that I did on the after on this one, with the arm curling up. So I did it this way. We can still see the differences though, right? So again, we'll work our way down to up. Again, the hamstrings right around here, you could see a little bit more lines and details on the before versus the after. Calves, I'm not noticing much on any of these. Maybe that was either my fault on the posing part. I wasn't really flexing the calves, or I'm not too sure what happened there. Maybe no calf gains. However, moving our way up, again, on the forearms, the vascularity, the veins coming out in here versus over there. The tricep, even though it was not at the same exact arm position, I think you can see the tricep curving in more on here versus over here. Shoulder, the same thing. You're able to see the separation in the shoulder with those striations going on in there. And it's pretty much all we can gauge from this pose. Let's move on to the next. And again, same thing for the other side pose. With the arm curved forward is how I'm going to be posing moving forward. So again, although it's not the exact same pose, we are able to see some differences. Again, working our way down to up. Hamstring line, again here, we can kind of see hamstrings. Maybe I do see a slight bend on mine here versus a more straight. So maybe that's why we're not able to exactly compare the two. But however, again, same thing with the forearms. More vascularity on the forearms. On this one, we're able to see the waist a little more. This waist does look from side to side, like thickness forward to back thickness looks a lot less on this side. Again, tricep, you could kind of see it a lot better here, the curve versus here, maybe due to the pose. The chest, you're starting to see the striations up on the side of the chest here. Again, unfortunately, because it's not the same pose, we can't see them on this side. However, I feel we can tell the differences on here. Let's move on to the next pose. All right, now we're on to our front double bicep. Again, we'll work our way down up. So yes, here we can see, again, even though you were able to see some outlines on the quads here, I feel like you could definitely see a more round to the teardrop, maybe like some striations trying to come in on there. And then whatever this part is called, you can see it a little bit better. Here we go again with the stomach. Maybe I was able to pull a tighter vacuum on the after versus the before. Could that have been due to less weight and less fat? Possibly. But regardless, trying to hold the vacuum on both, you can see the slightly thicker and fluffier stomach, lower stomach area here compared to there. Obliques pop in a little bit more, even though you could still see some obliques on the befores. We'll move our way up. Chest line, lower chest line, kind of way more visible on this one, on the after than the before. Same thing with the upper chest right here. You could see it a lot better. And then, yeah, like even though there is some separation, I guess I didn't have way like excessive body fat in the before. You can still definitely tell the difference in the biceps, like how the tricep line here is in the hang. Maybe the shadow here is not letting it, but you do see way more separation in the arms comparing the before and after. And then I think we can even see a difference regardless of what body fat percentage or what weight I am. I just always have like the double chin going on, but you can see it in the face. I think right here in this face, it does look a little bit more full compared to this after one. So there's the front double bicep. Let's move on to the next pose. We'll do our back double bicep now. So again, this one is definitely showing us a difference in the hamstrings here. I think again, we can see some more detail in the after hamstrings versus the befores. Again, the lower waist, I think it's got more like of a roundy look here versus here it's going more to the hourglass look. So you could also see the fluff kind of got deleted in my longhas right here, or love handles, I think is what it's called. Again, Christmas tree was still kind of visible on the before. Based off the shadows though, it looks like a darker, deeper shadow on the after one. So I'm gonna say that they probably pop out more, giving it that shadow to go in deeper. Regardless of that, if we move up towards the back, again, more details coming in. You're starting to see a bunch of little lines going on over here compared to over here. I'm not too sure what this body part called is here, but again, you can see the lines differences from here to there. The shoulders, again, you could still see some separation and striations in the shoulders, but over here you can see it got way tighter, like skin tight, right? Same thing with the arms. I think you're able to see that bicep peak ball forming on the afters way more than in the befores. I think this back double bicep has got us a good before and after. I think I like this before and after. I think I like this before and after comparison the best out of all of them. I think this one really showcases the difference in weight and body fat. On to our next pose. All right, here we got a side chest pose. Again, starting our way down to up. Maybe I got a more angle bend on the after versus the before. But again, we're definitely able to see some more hamstring lines and details where you can see my cursor I'm trying to outline it versus over here. Here we're starting to see a little bit more the calf lines compared to these calf lines. And as we move our way up, again, you're still able to faintly see a bicep vein right here, but this is way more showing on the after, as well as again in the forearms. You can see the vascularity in the veins on the forearms here versus there. I mean, you can barely see them. Shoulders as well. I think you can see a lot more roundy on the shoulder. Underneath, kind of like this rib obliques area. Looks very similar, honestly, I think, to the before and afters. But if we look at the chest, you can kind of, on that other angle, we were able to see more striations on the middle of the chest. But here, you can't really see them on this angle, but you could definitely see that you have a few poking here versus none there. Could that be due to lighting? Maybe. But again, you can pay attention to the face and the neck area. It definitely looks a lot more fluffy here. Maybe the smile on my cheeks there as well compared to this one. Now let's move on to the next pose, and I think this is our final pose, front lat spread. So again, working our way down to up, looking at the legs. Again, I feel like, yes, you can definitely see a little bit more details in the legs. I personally tend to hold most of my fat, or I lose the fat later, or I don't know how to say it, but I hold my fat to the end. So for example, I could lose the fat on my chest before the fat on my arms, and then I'll lose the fat on my arms before I lose it on my stomach, and then I'll lose it first on my back, in that order. But all the times I've gotten shredded in the past, my legs, the striations on my legs has always been like the toughest. Fat tends to want to chill down there a lot longer, so I guess I would have to diet even further to really get the separation and striations on the legs for my personal body. But again, here on the waist, the lonja, you see it's more rounded, and then over here is turning into the more hourglass look, especially on the lower stomach. You can see it more fluffy here versus down and over here. Again, obliques, you can still see them poking out on the befores. Not as much, but definitely a lot more on the afters over here. Again, chest in the middle and underneath, you can see the outline of the chest a lot more. From this angle, I think you can also see a little bit more on the arms, like in the shoulder area, the separation right here of the shoulder in the arm compared to this one as well. And then again, in the face, all this area right here looks a lot more thick compared to over here. All right, so now I'm kind of going back and looking at the previous days, starting off with day 1, moving in onto day 40. So I can kind of look back and remember exactly how I felt and or what it looked like as far as weight and strength goes from the very first day and or week of each workout compared to the final. Even though I do know, yes, my strength did take a decline. It's just hard to keep up with the strength when you're in a deficit, when you're losing weight and all that. How much strength did I lose exactly? I do not know the answer, which is why I'm trying to go back to the first videos, comparing it to the final videos. The FST-7 training app that I used for this mini cut, the way that app works, it doesn't keep a history. So it only has what your current weight is for that exercise at that point in time. So for example, if you're on a bench press and you log your weight at 45 pounds, right? The next time it's gonna be at 45 pounds. And let's say you went up in weight the second week and you wanna relog it, and you went up 1 marshmallow that equals 2.5 pounds, right? On each side. So now you're putting at 47.5 on each side. So then the next time you come around, it's gonna tell you to use weight 47.5. And you can't go back to see what your starting weight was last week, last month, last year. So that's the unfortunate part, that it doesn't have a logged history for you. So you don't know if you're getting stronger or getting weaker, other than if you went out of your way and wrote it down on the notes or a spreadsheet or on your journal or whatever. So again, I don't have the exact numbers, but I have the videos. I mean, based off of the earlier videos, you could definitely tell in my energy, right? The amount of weight I'm moving, how I'm moving it, my personal energy, right? So I'm over here doing the singing, I'm vibing, but towards the end, you could also notice that, again, how the weight's moving, what weight I'm moving, and the vibe of my energy. I'm singing a lot less, the dieting fatigue is kicking in. So the goal of me keeping my strength and how I tried to do so, what I did was at minimum for the very first set and the very first couple reps, I'd use the exact same weight. So again, for example, if I was using a 45-pound dumbbell to row for 8 to 15 reps, and I was getting 15 reps in the very beginning, the next, all 4 sets, right? And then week 2, maybe I was only clearing 14 reps, but still at the same weight, all 4 sets. Week 3, still staying at 14. Once I got to that lower end of the rep range where the goal was 10 to 15 reps, once I would hit, I can barely hit the 10, then I would drop weight. So instead of, let's say, first set, 45-pound dumbbell, got to the 10, but I knew I wasn't going to clear it on the second set, I would then drop to a 40-pound dumbbell so I can stay within the 10 to 15 rep range. So the strength, I was still able to move the same weight, however, for not the exact same amount of reps and or sets as I was in the beginning. So strength was still, again, strength was there, but not 100% of it, right? I could still move the same weight Yet again, not for the same amount of reps and or sets back to back. And as far as the FST-7 training style goes, with high volume, did that help me with my pumps while my calories were low? It's kind of a hard answer. I do think that the more volume with the higher reps and the flex sets all combined definitely gets the blood flowing and pumping into that muscle a lot more than less volume, which I think is obvious. So while on a calorie deficit, your pumps do definitely go down. You don't feel as full, which again should be obvious. But while incorporating the FST-7 training, I wouldn't necessarily say it kept my pumps at the same level if you did the exact same FST-7 workout, comparing it to the maintenance calories versus the deficit calories or even in the surplus calories. That pump will definitely feel different in all three ways, right? The maximum pump would definitely come when you're in a surplus, mid pump, and or pretty good pump when you're in the maintenance calories. But while on a calorie deficit, it helped you still achieve some sort of pump and try to kind of see and or keep some fullness, but it's not the same, man. It's not the same. I do definitely like that training style though. It was a lot of fun. Mistakes and lessons during this mini cut, I don't think I really had any. If you watched and remember, or if you're brand new or haven't seen those videos yet, I'll let you know now. The previous series before this, when I did the lean bulk challenge, I did have a few mistakes and or lessons, hiccups, speed bumps, whatever you want to call it, happen at that point in time where I had a minor tweak with my back on a leg day. This time around for the mini cut series, I had nothing like that. So there was no setbacks, no minor injuries or tweaks throughout this entire mini cut. So I'm definitely thankful for that. I mean, other than something like that, the same as my lean bulk challenge, I built a simple diet that was easy to follow and I had no issues following it. I enjoyed every meal I had, so there was not hard to resist cheat meals or cheat treats, if you want to call them that. I was pretty much happy and satiated with everything that I was eating, which made it really easy to stay locked in. And as far as eating goes, I'm pretty disciplined in that, so nothing really went wrong at that part. And then for my personal situation, I train fasted at 4 a.m. So it may be different for others depending on their schedule and what time they work out. Some people may be on the deficit and they're hungry, and it kind of can get them in a weird mood while doing their workouts. But again, for me, since I started, I've always trained fasted and in the morning. So either I've grown really used to that, or maybe that's the way you should go, right? So I'm never really ever thinking about food or hungry while I'm working out. I get up, train, and then I have my breakfast after. So my day goes smooth while operating in that routine. All right, so with all that being said, the mini cut was just a primer to erase some of the fluff that I got early on with the lean bulk challenge, just to get me ready to continue to grow again. As I've said before, my overall main goal for 2026 is to get as big as I naturally can. So if you want to see how I add back all the weight that I just spent these past 8 weeks losing in the next 8 weeks, however, this time without the fat, be sure to subscribe and follow. But until then, remember, always try your fucking best. Peace.